Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to mi cocina medicina, my medicinal kitchen. I'm going to show you around, show you how I organize things, what tools you need to have in your kitchen, and why is your kitchen, not your closet, where you should be spending your money. I live in a small studio apartment, and so my kitchen is pretty basic. I don't have a lot of storage, but I have enough, certainly, for what I need. Let's start with the equipment you should have. So I'd like to keep my tools within reach, and here next to my stove you'll see my plastic or mostly wooden utensils so I don't scratch my pans, fresh salt and pepper grinders along with my mortar and pestle, and a repurposed coffee grinder, which I actually now use since I don't drink coffee. I use that to freshly grind whole seeds like my fennel and my cumin or coriander and make custom spice blends, which I highly recommend. I also use my Instapot. Yay! Woohoo! Well worth the investment. This can do quite a bit. You can leave the house when things are cooking, and I think that is probably why so many people, especially women, moms across America, love it. Because you can do so many things with it. I use this to cook my beets, roast squashes, make dal, and lots of kitchery in that, and it has never failed me. So highly recommended to use an Instapot. There's all kinds of cool features. This is not a commercial for Instapot, but just to show you what I use to really manage my time. Now, I don't have a gas stove, which I really miss. I find gas stoves cook more evenly, but you work with what you got, right? My next big investment recently was my professional speed blender, the Ninja. I can't quite yet invest in a Vitamix, but I sure do love this for juicing, for blending, and even when I'm in a pinch. I recently broke my food processor, or the lid to it broke when it fell off the dish rack, and so now I've actually chopped ginger and carrots in this thing, and it's pretty high powered. I also have my electric tea kettle, which is a must have, especially if you're cooking broths or stews on the stove and maybe you need to add some more water at some point in the recipe. And rather than add cold water, I'll always have the kettle going with boiled water in case I need to add that to a dish without necessarily adding more cooking time. I have my handy toaster oven that I use. I live alone, so there's small portions when I don't want to turn on the oven. And then, of course, I've got my wonderful freezer and fridge, which we'll get into. So let me show you how I organize some of my cabinets. Above the tea kettle is where I keep all my mugs, lots of stainless steel water bottles and thermoses, along with my tea tray and my favorite plates. Next to cabinets, I use this pantry here and restock them by season. So since I'm shooting this in wintertime, I've got my dal, my brown rice, dates, prunes, raisins. We've got some sweet potatoes back here that almost through already. And then a lot of staples. So I always have coconut milk, beans, staples like vinegar, tomatoes, and some seeds or nuts that work well for me. I've got some bone broth, some veggie broth. Always have a ton of fresh ginger in the house and some canned sauces, brown basmati rice, some cranberries there. In this cabinet, I keep my daily spices, my basic fats, coconut oil and ghee tend to be my go-tos. And then I've got my grains and 2 jars of spice mix that I make, one savory, one sweet, and I rotate those around based on what I want. And then I've got my holy trinity up there. We've got cumin, fennel, coriander, and turmeric rocking it, as well as my baked items like my almond and buckwheat flour, baking cups, things I don't use quite as often, up at the very top there. Inside of my cabinet here, I attach some favorite recipes and for fresh juices, depending on the dosha I want to balance. So it's nice having that right there in the cabinet or right next to my Ninja blender. So I'm able to keep things fast and easy. Cookware is a bit of a personal thing. It depends on how often you cook, what your favorite methodology is, and how often you want to be cleaning it and taking care of it. What I use on the daily, I've had a set for ages that is Calphalon. Yeah, I have an old set I've had forever that's Calphalon. I like this because it can go in and out of the oven. See, I've had it for ages. It's pretty beat up. It should probably be replaced. And my other set that you see behind me here is stainless steel. This is from KitchenAid. I think it's some of my pots and pans actually come from the Chef Emerald, his line. And so I really like these pots and pans because I can move them right from the stovetop to the oven, and that they are pretty nicely weighted. So I feel like ergonomically with the handles and the way they're positioned, then I'm not really straining my wrists, which is important, especially for a massage therapist. I've tried to use cast iron pans, but the truth is I just don't maintain them. I know that they're pretty easy to maintain, but I just like being able to wash all my dishes and pots and pans in the same process. And cast iron just didn't work for me. It wasn't very practical. If I want a really long roast, then I'll use this. I'll use my Le Creuset. And I think this even is cast iron, but it's enameled. So you get that even cooking temperature throughout. And that's what really adds to such robust flavor. And in the final cabinet over here to the right of the stove, I keep my supplements, my Ayurvedic formulas, vitamins like calcium and vitamin D, magnesium. I have some triphala and inspiration. And then on the next two shelves are my cookbooks and some inspiration to keep me healthy and keep using a lot of new ideas and spices to keep things interesting and medicinal. I don't think we use enough spices in our American culture. So this spice box here that I got at a NAMA conference way back when is amazing. I highly recommend experimenting with your spices. And again, here on the inside of the cupboard, I have more smoothie recipes that I enjoy and broken up by dosha. So at the ready during cleanse time or anytime I'm feeling an imbalance, I can just, boom, have my favorite recipes at the ready. For storage, always glass or stainless steel, never plastic. Also, mason jars with a wide mouth opening at the top. And I have this cool little funnel that allows me to really load without the spillage when I'm making my big batches of soup or dal. Plus, the shape of this lends itself to saving more space in the fridge or in your cooler. So I keep leftovers on top. This is at eye level, reminds me to eat that food first. And then I usually keep a practice of putting my produce in my doors. You know, I try to really minimize commercial condiment use and make my own dressings and tahini and ghee, and that's what you see here in this middle shelf. And then on this doorway I keep what other condiments I may use in my cooking. I've got some washed ghee as well as some ceremonial cacao. Bottom drawers here, we've got some greenage. Now, if I don't buy my greens in a package like this and they're just loose, I'll put them in a glass with water and rest that like a vase right here in the door. And this drawer, I've just got some assorted shredded cheeses and then all of my pungents and a few potatoes in the drawer here. So it's pretty basic, but it does the trick, and that's my fridge. I do keep some bulk stored frozen produce. I keep a couple of ice packs for any injury, sprains, or strains. Here I've got some frozen meats and some frozen berries and flowers. I save my wilted flowers and freeze them for future baths or ceremonies. It makes for a really special way to have ceremony.